Will former Troy Trojans running back Kimani Vidal finally get his chance with the Los Angeles Chargers? It's Locked on Sunbelt.
You are Locked on Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked on Sunbelt, your teams every day. Sorry for the late post. Got home late last night from a great event at work and figured I'd just hop into bed, get up early, work out, and be refreshed and ready to go. This morning, I still have time to post the podcast. All right, can the Cajuns keep the momentum going against JMU? Tough opponent, and is ODU at Marshall your classic trap game? Okay, so we don't do a whole lot of fantasy football on this show for obvious reasons, and it's not so much about fantasy football outside of I have Omario Hampton on my fantasy football squad. So you look up who's next in line, and apparently it's Hassan Haskins and Kimani Vidal for the Los Angeles Chargers. And this is where he's going to get a shot. He was brought back to the practice squad, and we'll see if we get news today that he's actually on the team, which you think he would be. All right, if you go to Twitter or X and who do you pick up, everyone's looking at those guys. So this is Kimani Vidal's chance to make it in the NFL. Sometimes you don't get this opportunity. Najee Harris is out for the season, and Omario Hampton is out for a month with a bad ankle, okay? And who knows if he's coming back after 4 weeks. He doesn't even have to play coming back, but he's got to be on the roster. So Kimani Vidal actually played in a bunch of ball games last year. He got into 10 games last year for the Chargers, 43 carries, 155 yards, just over 3.5 yards a carry. Did have a fumble, did make 7 first downs, by the way. Did not score a touchdown. This year, 2 games played, 4 carries, 18 yards, and 1 first down. But I think a lot of that was in the game. Yeah, he didn't play. He's played in 2 ball games. I guess he didn't get any touches against the Giants. So all those were against Washington last week when Hampton went down. All right. Also caught a ball for a yard. Okay. So this is where you got to take advantage of it if you're Kimani Vidal. You're not necessarily, and this is the world of football compared to some other teams, okay? Because there are no, for the most part, guaranteed contracts. Guys get locked in with high salary cap numbers, but it's not necessarily untradeable. But this is where he is not only playing for the Chargers, he's playing for the other 31 teams. All right. He's got to come, and if given a chance, he has to shine. All right. As someone who has Omario Hampton on there, he's played well this year. So they can run the football. They didn't do such a great job against Washington last week. I think that's more than Justin Herbert, but that's a whole different podcast. You guys can keep that one out there. Locked on Chargers. Okay. So this is the opportunity, right? Because, if Hampton comes back, do they trade Vidal? Do they trade Haskins? Right. This is all a possibility. Does he get a shot next year? Is he a backup next year? Does he shine here where he becomes a starter? I mean, this is a big time opportunity. Let's not, sugarcoat it. He's got to take advantage. All right. And even if he's the backup where he's spelling Haskins, you got to make the most of it. He could be the third down back. All right. This is where Kimani Vidal, all right. And the last time we've really seen him was when he was scoring 4 touchdowns in the Sun Belt Championship a couple of years ago. All right. So that the Chargers think enough of him to keep him around is impressive. Was he drafted? Why don't I think he was? He was 6th round pick. So that he's still there is impressive because 6th round picks that have, what do we say? 10 carries or I'm doing splits here or stats. 43 carries on 155 yards. They don't stick around very much. They are fungible. All right. As most running backs are. The thing is here, he's cheap. All right. So it doesn't take much room on the cap space. He's getting the minimum of all minimums. So he's worth it. Can he take advantage? So again, it's not only playing for the Chargers and wanting to win for the Chargers, but don't think for a second that his agent hasn't said, this is your NFL audition. You thought the Senior Bowl or the Combine was your audition for all the teams. Now this is really it. Now you're going up against the pros. All right. Got to hang on to the football. See if you can grind out the big yards. It is decisions, whereas you can't be looking for that 30-yard gain all the time when it is, 1st and 10. If you can go get 3 yards, that's big when there's nothing there. All right. And then when that hole does open, can you put the foot down and go in the other direction and scamper for a big gain? All right. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out, because I think he's going to shine. All right. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. Tried to see if he was picked up yesterday again. I had a technological meltdown on Tuesday. Couldn't find my phone at home. Watch ran out of juice. I couldn't keep up with anything going on yesterday. So we'll see. He's got to get promoted to the team. We'll see if that happens. I presume that it is. And whatever role he's playing, I mean, it could be completely split. I'm not sure why you would pick one or the other. You would think they would do it evenly. But if one guy gets hot, the other guy's got to, be ready to go, because no one carries the ball all the time, right? The Patriots have 3 guys, now down to 2. But I think it's a great opportunity for Kimani Vidal, and let's see if he can shine for the Chargers. Who do they have, by the way? I don't even know who are they playing? I don't even know who they're playing. They're playing the Dolphins. I mean, you got to shine against the Dolphins. The Dolphins stink. I mean, do we need to see where they are statistically wise? Team statistics. Dolphins. No, that's not what I want to see. I want to see where they rank defensively. Let's see here. Team statistics. Rushing. Doesn't yards allowed. We'll see defense. All right, yards allowed. Okay. Miami's actually, oh goodness. Oh, they have allowed the 4th most. I was going in the wrong direction. All right. Rushing yards a game. Miami is not towards the bottom. Where's Miami? Miami's right in the middle. They give up 212 yards a ball game. Atlanta leads the that's passing. Rushing per game. Look at this. Miami's last. Miami gives up the most yards a game rushing. They give up 174 yards a game on the ground. I mean, I'm the worst fantasy football player in the history of fantasy football, although my 2 teams are doing well right now. You got to pick up Haskins or Kimani Vidal. All right, they're going to gash the Miami Dolphins. What a huge opportunity for both those guys. And we'll be keeping our eye on Vidal. All right. In the meantime, it seems to be a tough opponent for the Cajuns to keep the momentum going, but maybe a break for JMU. We'll talk about that next, right after I tell you about Mazda and Monarch Money. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. And Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, And finally, feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. It could be, but it's not. And if you're listening, I'm lifting my coffee cup where it says this could be bourbon, but it is just black coffee. Okay. So one of the things in all sports is momentum, right? You catch momentum, say at the All-Star break, and the worst thing you want is 4 days off, right? All of a sudden you win 3, 4 in a row, and you get a day off. Yeah, we'd rather have that day off later. At least that's the way I look at it. Okay. Cajuns get a big win, explode, come back, beat Marshall. They get a week off. Now, that week off ends up being good for a couple of things. First of all, some guys were banged up, like Lunch Winfield, and the offensive line. But now you had a whole week to tweak the offense on what Lunch can do. Remember, he came in the middle of the third quarter, did not complete his first pass until the end of the fourth quarter. All right, almost 20 minutes of game time. And so you have to find out what he can do good. Because, speaking of defense, the best defense by far is JMU. They are one of the best defenses in the nation. All right, what did I say? I know it's apples to kangaroos, but Miami's given up 174 yards on the ground. JMU's given up like 200 yards total. That's what it is. All right. So I'm not sure this is the best matchup for the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. They're certainly going to find out what they're about. In this case, James Madison defense gives up 13.6 yards. I'm sorry, 13.6 points a game. At total wise, all right, yards wise, 217.2 yards a game. All right, total. You want to do rushing? James Madison gives up less than 80 yards a game. All right. There's no way that the Cajuns are going to win this football game without passing the football at least a little bit. All right. This is going to be the opposite of what I wanted them to do because you got to lay it. You got to lay into your strengths. Lunch Winfield passing the ball is not their strength, although that's how they came back. He made a few huge throws to get them back in the ball game, but that's not his strength. All right. They're going to have to come up with some big throws. All right. They're not going to be able to run it down JMU's throat. All right. On the other side of things, a little bit of a break for JMU because how many two-way quarterbacks are there in this conference? I mean, you do have Brad Jackson. All right. That's one. Colton Joseph is another one. That's why it's a break because they're getting ODU next week. There's the break. I don't know about JC French, but maybe Jalen Rayner. All right. There's only a few of them. And as it turns out, JMU is playing them back to back. Now, very different. All right. Because Colton can pass it with the best of them. And Lunch still a little bit inexperienced. We'll put it that way. All right. His strength is going to be running. But it's a tough matchup for the Cajuns. All right. But here's the other thing. JMU's offense is in no great shakes. Okay. They struggle offensively. All right. I'm not sure Alonzo Barnett III is totally healthy. All right. But his passing is not great. Now, can the Cajuns make the obvious adjustment when Matt Sluka comes into the ballgame and make it an obvious play where we're going to go for it and not get it because he's going to run it? Maybe not telegraph that as much as, they have been, right? You could do a little jump pass or something like that, a little take a step forward and then pass it, but we'll see if they come up with that. But tough matchup for the Cajuns, right? They're not playing Georgia Southern's defense. All right. They're playing JMU's defense, and that's a rough go of it. All right. So we'll see if the Cajuns can keep the momentum going. Because technically, as not great as their season is right now, they are 1-0 in the Sun Belt West. All right. Troy's 1-0, ULM's 1-0, Southern Miss is 1-0. All right. South Alabama 0-2. All right. Arkansas State's 1-1. Texas State is 0-1. So if somehow you go in there and beat JMU, you're 2-0 in the West. All of a sudden, some of those ugly losses at the beginning of the year may not mean anything. All right. Tall task. That is for sure. And JMU gets a little bit of a break because they can prepare for 2 running quarterbacks in a row. All right. Not going to be easy for the Cajuns. What do we say? It was a 17.5-point spread. Not going to be easy. But let's see if they can keep the momentum going. And I don't think it's a trap game as much as it is for the next game coming up that we're going to talk about, because JMU can use this and tweak their defense to what's coming up. All right. I mean, JMU should win this football game, but you turn it over a little bit and you never know, because JMU's offense is not all that explosive. It's very inconsistent. They can run the football. If the Cajuns can't stop the run, they're going to be in trouble. But they are not as explosive as ODU. At least I don't think so. All right. Meanwhile, ODU at Marshall would seem like the classic trap game. We'll tell you about that right after Prize Picks. This episode of Locked On Sunbelt brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right. This would seem to be the classic trap game. We had a little fun with Colton Joseph last week, I guess. Are they looking ahead to JMU, or were they concentrating on Coastal? Okay. And, he gave me the cliche answer. We're just concentrating on Coastal. We're not there yet. Okay. Well, they weren't they were concentrating on Coastal because they blew them out. All right. But this would seem to be the classic trap game, because you got JMU next weekend, and this weekend you're going with Marshall. All right. They're a 14.5-point spread, 14.5-point favorite on the road. Sounds a lot like Texas State was last week, right? Now, here's the problem, right? Is Marshall's defense is not nearly as good as JMU's. All right. If we go, because they're going to get killed from what happened last time. Rushing defense. Well, actually, Marshall only gives up 134.8 yards a game. That's not bad. All right. That's fourth. All right. Total defense. They're seventh, 380 yards a ball game, just under. All right. Right in the middle. Scoring defense. They are ninth. They give up 31 points a game. And obviously the 54 that the Cajuns put on the board is going to hurt that. All right. Now, if you're Marshall, can you run the football against ODU, right? Carlos Del Rio Wilson had a fantastic ball game against the Cajuns. You can't look at the way they lost that ball game and blame it on him, right? We've been through that. He has blossomed. And, when you're playing 2 or 3 different quarterbacks to figure out who your quarterbacks are, and you land on this guy, it feels like that has played out to where he's the quarterback. All right. And this is where they're going to have trouble. Old Dominion is second right behind JMU in scoring defense, 14.6 points a game. Rushing defense, Old Dominion is sixth, giving up 165.2 yards a game. So you can run on ODU. All right. Let's see total wise. Total wise, ODU is giving up just 314 yards a game, almost 100 more than a JMU. The difference is they only give up 149 yards passing. Now, is that because they're really good at the passing, or is that because everybody's running on them? Those are two different things. Right? So we'll see. It's a classic trap game. It's not at home. You're a huge favorite on the road. You're expected to win, and you got this huge nationally televised ball game coming up next week, where a lot of eyes are going to be on it. This is going to be, let's be honest, we talked about it last episode. This is going to be the chance for the Cajuns. Chance for the Sun Belt, whether it be ODU or JMU, to get themselves in the playoff picture, right? If that game is played well and close, doesn't matter what the score is, as long as it's close without being sloppy in turnovers, right? You can have a bad ball game where each team has turned the ball over and it ends up being 17-14 because no one can hang on to the ball. But if it is a good, solid ball game and ODU wins 24-21 or JMU pulls it out 21-17 because there's both have pretty good defenses, you're going to get a lot on these are two playoff teams. All right. Right. We'll get to the, can they win a playoff game? That's something different. We'll worry about that later, right? We just want somebody from the G5 and specifically the Sun Belt to get to the playoffs. All right. And so we'll see. All right. It's a big ball game. And that's why you can't have that letdown in Marshall. All right. Another big ball game this weekend is you do have it tomorrow. All right. It's coming up. Southern Miss at Georgia Southern. All right. This is where we're going to see the maturity of Southern Miss, if they can take it to the next level. All right. Georgia Southern is not a very good football team. Period. End of story. They have been, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest letdown in the Sun Belt this year. And they are dead last when it comes to rushing defense. They're giving up 262 yards a game. They give up more yards on the ground than JMU gives up total. So we're going to be looking for was it Jeffrey Pittman ball game there? Yeah. All right. That's what we're going to be looking for. All right. That's what I'm leaning into. All right. We'll worry about Braylon Braxton airing it out against some other team. We're going to adjust to what they don't do well and what we can do well. But it's on the road. I presume Southern Miss is favored in this one. Maybe, yeah, they are 3.5. This is kind of a maturity game. This is where we see if Southern Miss and Charles Huff and Braylon Braxton and Pittman and Ian Foster can take it to the next level. All right, because winning on the road is hard. You guys know I believe that. Regardless of what we're doing, right? ODU goes out into Marshall and squeaks out a 3-point victory. Fine, great. Let's win and move on. All right. If you're ODU, you'd like to play better than that, but maybe Marshall plays well. All right? Winning on the road is difficult. And so let's see if Southern Miss can go in there and handle Georgia Southern, because they're a desperate football team too. They're 0-1. They're playing at home. They think this is a must-win situation. They have Southern Miss and Georgia State. So they're thinking if we can go 2-0, we'll be 2-1 and going to Arkansas State. And now we're maybe in the race for the Sun Belt East. Right? So they're looking at it the same way. They're at home. We need to play better. I would look for Southern Miss to run it down their throat over and over again. Another big ball game, talking about maturity level, is a Troy at Texas State. All right. Can Texas State bounce back from what was a brutal loss to Arkansas State, although thrilling ball game? And, Troy's seems to be improving. All right. They didn't necessarily, although it was overtime to beat South Alabama, right? Can you get it going before the second half? And how do you react to going on the road? All right, as Georgia Southern is the biggest disappointment, and we think ULM is a pleasant surprise. I got to think that Troy is one of the bigger surprises in the Sun Belt this year. All right, after that win against South Alabama and a crazy win against Buffalo and, 28 fourth quarter points against Nichols. Jared Parker's doing pretty good there. All right. And they could have lost that football game against South Alabama. Don't make any mistake about it. They could have lost it and yet end up winning it and winning the belt back. All right. So we'll do more of a preview. We'll look at the Georgia Southern Miss ball game for tomorrow's episode and then run it back with everything. But I appreciate your patience. Thank you so much. And the support has been great. We're getting audio downloads have been fantastic. And, don't forget about it, Apple and Spotify. And the best way to grow the podcast, and probably should say this in the first 30 seconds of it, is to leave those comments. All right. It is me responding. It seems we're getting people that are not necessarily just Sunbelt fans. All right. Are making comments in there, but I appreciate it. Some of the frustration from the Texas State fans, who you are, can understand that. Okay, and that was a really close ball game, and I'm sure it was not only lost on an extra point, but that's a tough one to swallow. I admit that. That is a tough one to swallow. All right, I got to get going. It's a big day at work. All right, we are releasing a special bottle, so we'll see if people are coming in on a Wednesday. And it's been a lot of fun. We're not necessarily busy during the week, but we are sold out on the weekends, it appears. We got a special bottle today, so we'll see if people are showing up for that. It is not exactly inexpensive, but that's what the bourbon industry is. And I have a lot of it. So if you're coming to Louisville and you want to taste something, I'm glad to share. All right. Again, thanks very much for tuning in. Have a great day, everybody. And we will be back on Thursday with another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day.